Fantasy Football Show.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Planet Sky FF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Suj.
My name is James.
Every time it gives you a little tickle to think that we're trying to win 50 G's.
I'm trying to win a console, maybe. For fourth and fifth place.
What is it, Xbox or PS4 or something?
Choice of console, fourth or fifth, mate.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
You think they got fucking Nintendo 64s kicking around? Because that was my console of choice back in the day, N64 with Mario Kart.
What was the one with the frog used to cross the road? What was it called? Before the Commodore.
Commodore Spectrum? Amiga?
Might have been.
Amiga? I don't remember back in the day.
Showing our age now, anyway.
We are indeed. But I'd pick N64 with GoldenEye each and every time. Let's talk about Sky Fantasy Football. This is our main podcast for this week. We're not doing an FPL one, although we've talked plenty about FPL.
Just do one every day.
Yeah, we've only put out the Clash of the Correspondents and all the rest of it. That's going out tomorrow. We've also had the final plan and what have you on the way. So this week we're dedicating it to Sky because of the overhaul. For regular listeners and Sky players, you'll know that the overhaul is the Sky equivalent of the wild card. And the difference being in Sky that you get a fixed week where you have to use it, and this is it. There's one now and one at Christmas, if memory serves me correctly.
End of Jan, no. It's round about the FA Cup fourth round.
Yes. So this is the week where we've now got 2 hours. I think every time you log in, it says 2 hours, 2 days, 18 hours, 22 minutes at time of recording before the overhaul deadline.
You ready? You set?
No, man. I had time set aside today to really start thinking about it. Other than the early look at prices and players that I thought might be interesting, I haven't gone heavy into it, but I will be obviously overhauling.
We should probably clarify a few things. One, for the regular FPL listeners, by all means, listen in. You'll probably get some tips on some players that are interesting during the podcast. Players we tip up on this, though, are not necessarily beneficial to you or FPL, and same applies for strategies as well. Please remember that Suj and I have been playing this game for 4 weeks. Yep. We are by no means experts. We do recommend our friends Mark Edworthy, Dan Cox, from their Sky podcast last week. They've also released a YouTube video today with Will from Fantasy Football Hub, which I've intentionally not watched yet. I was intentionally going to watch it just to repeat what they said and sound clever, but I didn't get the chance because I'm so busy at work. So even that plan has failed. Plagiarism has failed. So I'm going to be watching that as soon as we're done, to be honest, this evening. It's going to be on my watch list of things to do. A lot of different rules in Sky FF, and we may clarify some of them as we're going along, just to give the pod some context. But if you are a regular Sky FF player and you think we're repeating ourselves, then apologies for that as well. First and foremost, 11 players, not 15, that we're picking, which makes it a little bit easier, I guess. Yes and no.
I mean, you don't have bench players coming off the bench to get you out of a hole.
Probably go a little bit more safer with your choices, I would say. At certain points, rotating fullbacks are always an issue in FPL, for example, but they're more of an issue here because you've got no cover for it at all. So your 11 is important. Yeah. Obviously, a captain per match day, rather than per game week. So if you've got 4 different matches, one on a Friday, one on a Saturday, one on a Sunday, one on a Monday, you can potentially have 4 different captains doubling up their points for you. Yeah, and it's critical. We think we very quickly learned the importance of the captaincy here. One of the things we're going to try and cover today is how important and when is it important. So we're going to look at some of the individual day games, such as Villa, West Ham, Southampton, Bournemouth, and work out, is it important to obviously have captains in those fixtures? Because yes, of course you want one, but is it does it take away from your overall of what you'd be expecting elsewhere? For example, if you're jumping off a Salah to get Callum Wilson in for Friday night, is it worthwhile? For example, if you're thinking, I won't captain Salah at Chelsea in the same game week. we'll probably struggle a little bit with the game weeks here because the game weeks don't run parallel to the FPL game weeks as such. So this coming game week is game week 6 in Sky, whereas it will be game week 5 in FPL.
Indeed. And then on top of that, obviously the bonus point system is a little bit different, and there's other complications and stuff to think about. Now, this is I think the overhaul is timed well, because now hopefully, with Touchwood, Sky will announce the televised fixtures on Friday, but we don't know that yet.
We think it's scheduled for Monday.
Yeah.
What I'd stress,
which is annoying.
It is and it isn't. What I'd stress with that is there's 6 game weeks between now and November. I think that's a big enough block for your planning, really.
Sure.
Because anything more, I mean, what happens if in the first week in November you've got one fixture and it's, I don't know, Bournemouth against Wolves on the? Are you suddenly gonna play around with your team because of that? No,
you'll make those changes closer to the time
in advance. There are still things that I think that we can possibly work out from beyond the TV fixtures at the moment, which takes us up to Sky game week 12. Game week 13, for example, is the one we don't know the TV schedule for yet. We know that Liverpool will remain on the Saturday. Mm-hmm. They're away to Villa. That's because they play on the Tuesday in the Champions League. We know that City have Southampton at home that game week. So we can look at that already and go, okay, they're nice fixtures.
Yeah.
United at Bournemouth is probably the other standout of those from the Big Six. And that's one because of United's involvement in Europa that it could well move to a Sunday. The following game week is when game week 14 in Sky is when Liverpool play Man City. I've had a look at the schedule there, and again, because Champions League follows the next week, I think that's almost certainly going to be 5:30 on the Saturday.
Yep.
There's no way Sky are going to want to let it go. And I believe it's League Cup fixtures in between, so you'd assume some sort of Liverpool City involvement. It's very unlikely to be the Friday night. I think it's almost certainly going to end up on a Saturday, 5:30. We already know that week in game week 14 that Leicester and Arsenal will be on the Sunday. Manchester United against Brighton will be on the Sunday because of... Oh, sorry, it's European the week before.
Yeah.
So it definitely wouldn't be the Friday
Thursday,
night,
Sunday
Liverpool Saturday. So they'll definitely be on the Sunday or possibly the Monday. I think that following week then breaks into the internationals, I believe.
So fixture planning really important because it allows the captaincy planning. And now the reason I say it's good to have the overhaul after game week 4 is because now European football is going to be in full swing, and that's when you do see a lot more movement around the fixtures, and all the Europa games definitely moving to a Sunday. Champions League games moving around, and it's the Champions League clubs the way that potentially there is good value to be had as well.
Yeah, should we get into some teams, players, what our plans are, thoughts are, planning?
Yeah, I mean, initially, I was going to say, you said we've been playing this game for 4 weeks. I don't feel like I've been playing this game for 4 weeks.
4 days.
Well, the thing is, we both started the season with Alisson in goal. Very quickly had to move and use one of our fixed amount of transfers to Edison, and then since then neither of us have made a transfer.
Correct.
So other than picking a captain week in, week out, I don't feel like I've done anything, and that's why I don't feel like I've played the game at all. I haven't done anything other than just pick a captain, and most weeks it's been the obvious choice of Sterling or one of my Liverpool defenders, or I've even had Callum Wilson on occasion, which was a mistake, but you know, it's just been picking captains, and now I actually feel like I have to play the game, which is taking a bit more time.
You say that, I mean, I'm going to try and attack this again from a strategy in terms of how far can I go without making enforced errors. I think there are certainly times within the next 6 game weeks where you'll want to jump on and off. I think one of the ones that really stands out is Jamie Vardy, probably at Leicester, who game week 12 has the Friday night away to Southampton, and before that is game week 8 home to Newcastle, is the only game on the Sunday. Just a note on that, the FPL fixtures on the FPL website are incorrect. Currently still shows Everton and Manchester City as the only game on the Sunday. The official Premier League website and the Sky app are both correct. It is Leicester and Newcastle is the only game on September the 29th.
Okay, it's good to know.
So,
for sure.
I mean, that sort of thing, we say, Vardy, do you want to make that move now when it's United away, Spurs at home before? Or do you want to plan in someone to cover you until then and then make the move probably on that Sunday morning? So, for example, you could get 3 fixtures of Callum Wilson, for example, which would include that Friday night fixture at Southampton and gives you some cover there. You could look at Allaire.
Yeah.
That's more of a problem from a financial, so you need to hold the money back. I think there's only 0.7, I think, between Wilson and Vardy. Vardy's 10.7, sorry, 0.8. Wilson's 9.9. Allaire 8.2. So if you was to hold from Allaire to Vardy, for example, you need to hold back 2.5 million aside.
It's too much, isn't it, really?
A little bit, yeah. Whereas Wilson to Vardy, I think you can hold back 0.8.
Yeah.
That's okay if you want to make that sort of move. I mean, it's probably easier to maybe come off one of the real big hitters to just come down and then go back. It seems probably more like a more sensible strategy if you want to do that. Leicester involvement in here somewhere feels important, but I guess because of those first 2, you don't want to go mad for it.
No, they haven't got anyone that's particularly cheap either. Maddison's not bad at 8.3 as a shout. But it's whether or not you want to double up on Leicester and have Vardy and Maddison or just stick with one.
Yeah, I think on Leicester, while we're talking on them, Vardy 10.7, Maddison 8.3. The other obvious one is Siyunku, 6.2 is the other one who really stands out because it can sit there, can't it?
Yeah, and he's played every game so far and he's likely to as well.
And Leicester, I don't know. I don't think we really know where we stand with them in terms of, can they really push for that top 4 this year? We keep saying, I don't know, do we start talking about them as a big game for other teams? Leicester involvement, certainly during that period where you've got the Newcastle and Southampton fixtures within a couple, and they're the only fixtures on that day, you're going to want some. And that's the balancing act of knowing, okay, take Siyunku as an example. Newcastle home, Southampton away. Could well keep clean sheets in those 2. Vardy's goal scoring record is known over time that it's kind of fixture irrelevant.
Yep.
Which does make you think, oh, should I just go now? Because he's well capable of scoring against United, Spurs, whereas you wouldn't fancy the clean sheet so much.
No, not necessarily.
Do you take the stance and say, Siyunku, leave him in, I'll captain him on those 2 individual days, that will do. Is his place safe further down the line? We assume so, playing with Johnny Evans at the moment. I think Morgan's got an injury. I wouldn't see Morgan getting back in. They seem to lack a little bit of depth there at centre-half at the moment, Leicester, which could come back and bite, particularly, I think, if Evans got injured, because he's obviously a very experienced player. And Maddison's an alternative. Maddison's quite nicely priced.
Yeah, he is at 8.6 million, right?
8.3.
That's right. Yeah, I was looking at Wan-Bissaka as 8.3. Very good.
It's not bad at all. It's another one you can just dip in. There's a lot of midfielders who I feel like the most attractive ones. They're all in between that kind of 7 and 8 million, really. And Maddison's price is nice from that perspective because if you're not happy with it, you can drop down to several ones like Daniel James, for example, Mason Mount,
Lanzini, maybe.
Yeah, whereas you don't particularly want to be on the wrong end of that. So take the example of Gilbert and Byrne needs talking about, 4.5 and 4.6 respectively. Gilbert at 4.5 would give you that Villa, the Monday night cover as a captaincy option. Like he got a lot of us out for game week 3 against Everton. I think most people are going to go with one or the other, the experienced players. I think most will go with Gilbert on the influence of that. Brighton's fixtures are not bad either. What I'm saying is with those two, it does give you the get out. You can move away from it. Where there's certain other ones in the midfield areas, I feel like Tom Cantwell, who's nicely priced. Todd Cantwell, sorry, quite right you are. He's 5.8.
Yep.
There's nothing lower, in my opinion, that's of interest. And therefore, it's very difficult to get away from. And when I say low, I'm talking about defensively, midfield and attack.
Yeah.
You'd probably be going to a Gilbert or a Byrne if you then need to move that money on, if you're not saving some money back in the bank. I don't really know best strategy in terms of should you be leaving some money behind. I feel like you should. Yeah, I feel like spending it all just restricts you so bad.
And this is one where the number of transfers you have is obviously restricted over the season to 38. but you only want to use them if you really have to. And you don't want to use them in a desperate situation to get in a player that you don't really want because that's all you can afford when you're in a situation.
It's one, if you take Cantwell, I don't know how secure his place in that team is longer term.
I agree with you longer term. I mean, last week he was their best player, in my opinion. So,
and it's a difficult one to get away from. I've seen a lot of teams online. It's not a bad choice. I just think you need to be conscious that it's a difficult one to get away from. You need to have some money. The other thing with obviously leaving money back is, you know, players are going to get injured. Like if you go with Aguero, at some point in the next 3 months, he is going to pull his hamstring. Mm-hmm. You've got to be prepared to get away. That's easy because you can just drop down.
Yeah.
But you are going to have to prepare for the unprepared. I think if Gilbert or Burn got injured and there was no getaway, that becomes a real problem. And what's the getaway there anyway? Say if you go with Gilbert and he's not playing, you move into the Brighton defender.
It
doesn't sound great, but obviously what that does, if you go that way, that might enable you the difference between going, say, a Gilbert and, say, a 7 million defender, for example, allows you the difference to go from, say, a Maddison to a De Bruyne, I think, or an Allaire to go with a third premium forward, for example. So I understand why people are going to go that way. My philosophy at the moment is to not take any chances with this. So I think if I'm in a position in 6 weeks' time or whenever to know Gilbert has 100% got that shirt over El Mohammadi, I'll go down to it.
Drop down
That's
to him.
fine. I think I'd rather do that
Yeah.
than be in that pain that I've had, where I've had a couple of weeks already where I started with 5 defenders and I'm looking at it going, I'm only sure that one of these is going to play. You don't want to be in that position with this game, because what it's going to do to you is psychologically as well as go, I need to make changes.
Yep.
And I don't want to make unforced changes in this game.
Yeah. Who from your current 11 is going to stay in your 11 post overhaul?
Oh, I mean, I've got a team set up at the moment, but
you've made your overhaul transfers already.
You haven't done nothing, have you?
No, I haven't changed mine yet, so there's no price movement. So
I did set up a team for the first time last night when I was looking at some numbers and that. It's absolutely not finalised. One of the things I'm really unhappy with mine at the moment is I've got players in similar positions at similar price points.
Okay.
Which is going to potentially restrict me from getting others. Although I feel like I'm probably starting with the right formation, which feels like 4-3-3 to me.
I'm going 3-4-3.
Essentially, yeah. Well, you need 3 up front, generally, and so it's only one of those 2 formations.
Yeah.
I just feel that like I'd have more faith in some of the higher priced defenders currently than some of the midfielders. Like behind De Bruyne, you've got like Eriksen, really highly priced, Richarlison, Sigurdsson. These guys really don't appeal to me right now. And the big call for me at the moment would be to go without De Bruyne.
Yeah, I've got Edison in goal. I think he's going to stick. I'm going to stick with him through, just because he's a guaranteed starter. Trent and VVD are just so consistent and are just banging in the points as well, despite only the 1 clean sheet. I think they're going to stay with me through. I think De Bruyne is going to stay with me through. Sterling and Haller, I think, are going to stay with me through as well. Haller, I like the idea of. We do get quite a few televised games to West Ham and to get moved around
more than you should,
more than you'd expect for our league position, no doubt. But then that's based on the fan base, mate. So we've obviously got tons of fans.
Off.
So they pick it based on where they know they're going to get sponsors, mate. It's all about the monies. But Sigurdsson, Jota, Tielemans, Wilson, Gilbert are all on the chopping block for me. Doesn't give me the most amount of money to play with those 4 or 5.
I think I'll come back onto what I'm planning nearer the end. What I'd like to do is talk about my number 1 choice for this. He says wearing his Spurs jacket is
Aubameyang.
Is a gooner. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I feel I spoke to you before we recorded and I said I didn't think there was anyone absolutely essential in the game. And I think that's the case for FPL as well, a little bit at the moment, although there is a real movement towards De Bruyne now. Aubameyang is the first name on my sheet. I said that on the shorter pod last week. Absolutely, no doubt. And the reason why is when you break into what Arsenal were doing fixture-wise over the next 6 game weeks. So for me, when we start looking at the fixtures, which is really important when you're looking at your premium players here, Aubameyang's a standout captaincy option for me on Sunday away to Watford. The other game is Bournemouth and Everton. The following Sunday, he's also the standout captain. Liverpool go to Chelsea.
Yep.
I'm not saying you can't captain a Mane or a Salah. And there's a couple of other fixtures on the day, but Aubameyang at home to Villa absolutely appeals. I don't, by the way, see Aubameyang playing too much in Europa League.
They've got enough depth to get
with the way we're setting up. The following week, they're at Man United on the Monday night. Captain cover again. The following week, they play on the Sunday again, at home to Bournemouth. City are at home to Wolves. Now, obviously, you can go with a Sterling, Aguero, De Bruyne, whatever. But with the way Bournemouth can kamikaze defend sometimes, I'd be quite happy to go Aubameyang again. They won that fixture 5-1 last year. Then coming back after the international break, they play Sheffield United away on the Monday night. We go again. And then following that, they play on the Sunday again at home to Palace. United are at Norwich that day. Liverpool play at home to Spurs. It's toss a coin, that one. But again, you can go with it.
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 clear captaincy options.
They have no Saturday fixture. Between now and as far up as we definitely know the fixtures, we even know, as we said, that one of the two after they come back, Leicester away, it'll obviously definitely be a Sunday fixture again. Although United at home to Brighton would probably appeal more if you had an asset from that team. Not that I think you're particularly diving into a Rashford or a Martial for this at the moment. I don't see that at all. So Aubameyang's the first name on the sheet. One of the concerns with Aubameyang, I can understand this a little bit. We spoke about this at length sort of winter time last year when he was having this amazing run of conversion, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was basically having one shot on goal every week and scoring every week. Now, obviously, you kind of want the passing, the shooting tiers to go with some of these goals as well.
Yeah.
And he's not going to pick them up in the same way that an Aguero, a Salah or a Kane would, because he just doesn't shoot as much.
No, you're right.
But in terms of goals, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang could well finish this Premier League season as top goal scorer. I don't buy into the idea that because he's been shunted out to the left that it negates his ability and his goal scoring potential. It actually makes him harder to pick up, in my opinion. We speak, it's more FPL related, but on tomorrow's podcast we've got Adam at 352, our Arsenal correspondent, on with Stephen Toomey at 6th Goal. And I asked him a little bit about this idea of, are they trying to replicate formation-wise what Liverpool are doing in terms of Lacazette picking up Firmino-esque positions and Aubameyang and Pepe picking up similar roles to how Mane and Salah do for Liverpool. I know Mark and Dan on their podcast last week spoke at length about Pepe. Mm-hmm. Some of his statistics are very good. He's priced 9.4, I think. Pepe.
No, he's just a little bit more because you're trying to steal my thunder here, James.
Oh, he's FPL. That's his FPL price, isn't it?
9.4 is his FPL price. Yeah. I mean, you've waxed lyrical there about Aubameyang. I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things
really don't want to wax lyrical about Aguna, mate.
One of the things in FPL is the price differential between Lacazette and Aubameyang is quite substantial, 1.5 million. Here it's not there. It's 11.7 versus 11.1. So the only alternative, in my opinion, from Arsenal to Aubameyang would be Nicolas Pepe. Let's be honest, no one's buying Mesut Ozil at 10 million, are they?
You're not buying him defensively either, I don't think, even with them fixtures at the moment.
But Pepe is 9.8 in this game, which is it's a 2.1 million pounds cheaper. And budget does matter. So for me, if I can't stretch to Aubameyang, I think Nicolas Pepe is a perfectly decent replica replacement, let's say, and also captainable in a lot of those fixtures as well. But he is the only other Arsenal asset worth considering.
Yeah, I'd go with that. Lacazette wouldn't be a consideration for me.
Too expensive.
Ceballos, I feel like at 8.3, there's others at lower prices.
He's been priced kindly in FPL.
Would appeal more. Again, no, it's one similar price to Maddison. You can come off it. You can get away from it. There is a school of thought. I know our friend Dan at FPL Chancer he tweeted last night. He posted a Sky team that was very heavy on Arsenal. And he put out a statement saying, he thinks they're going to go mental in the next few weeks. And I can understand that. So if you want to
Sure.
go for like Pepe, Ceballos, if you want to throw one in defensively, you can. I mean, David Luiz for an Arsenal defender is so expensive in this. You just wouldn't go near it at all. I'm just going to pull up David Luiz's price. 9.8. Socrates 8.4 is too much. Rob Holding further down the line at 6.4 would appeal if eventually he does get back into that team. And Bellerin at 8.3 and Tierney at 8.1. Again, may also do so further down the line. Maitland-Niles, interestingly, is marked up as a midfielder in this at 6.9. So yeah, the only three I'd highlighted was Pepe, Ceballos, 9.8, 8.3 respectively. Aubameyang, gold star for me. Like first, honestly, it was pick Aubameyang and then go for the 10 other players.
Yeah, I may not have Aubameyang. I'm not disagreeing
That
with you on
didn't
that.
convince you then, no?
No, it's not about whether or not Aubameyang's the best pick, but sometimes we talk about this cover thing. I may not have the budget to go with Aubameyang, and I feel like saving 2.1 million or 1.9 million, whatever it works out to, might give me better options elsewhere, and Pepe would be then the one. I need one of them.
In my opinion, Aubameyang is capable, as we know, of being top goal scorer. He finished joint top goal scorer with 22 last season.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that in 5 of the next 6 Arsenal fixtures, I will captain Aubameyang on that game day.
Mm-hmm.
That's really worthwhile going and sticking
Of course.
with it, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure. Who else catches your eye then, moving down?
Well,
do you want to talk about budget options initially? Because unlike FPL, because FPL I feel like throws out more budget options than Sky FF has. There are plenty more that are playing that you can potentially consider that you just don't get in Sky FF. And you've mentioned Byrne and Gilbert already, and then Cantwell. Those are the only players below 6 million that you think are necessarily worth it. And I can't say I disagree with you.
The only other name I picked out is actually another Norwich name, Moritz Leitner.
Yeah,
6.1. So 0.3 more than Cantwell. You'd be hard pressed to go Leitner over Cantwell. I just noticed that he's played the 3 games and he picked up top passing tier in the 2 games he played that weren't against top 6 teams. So he hit 3 bonus against Newcastle and he hit 3 bonus against West Ham. It was just something I picked up on. He's not going to get attacking returns to go on top of that. I don't think he plays too deep. He's also neat and tidy, so he's not going to stand out for potential for kind of man of the match nominations. Norwich are going to be involved in games that are going to feature quite a lot of goals, I think. So yeah, the only 5 names I could come up with below 7 million were the 4 I'd already mentioned: Siyunku, Cantwell, Byrne, Gilbert, and Leitner as the 5th. Of the 5, I have one of them at the moment, and it is Siyunku.
Siyunku, I think, is going to be a consideration for me for sure.
I just think that's a longer term one where I'm happy. Yeah, okay, fixers shit in the immediate for Leicester. We know 3 of the next 4 are United, Spurs and Liverpool. But I feel like if he's going to stay in that position, there's every chance he'll just sit in that team for me all year, because they've been better. Although they've only got 1 clean sheet so far, Leicester, they've been better than I anticipated with them. He's also picked up 14 bonus points so far, Siyunku.
I mean, that's a lot. He's got 30 points already, which is massive for a defender. Highest scoring points for a defender so far with 30 points is crazy. I mean, VVD is behind at 25 and they've only kept 1 clean sheet. So as soon as they kick into gear, he's going to overtake
the Liverpool and the City guys are going to catch that up. Of course they are. But yeah, he is the top scoring defender at the moment. And he's picking up passing tiers, picking up tackle tiers. He had the assist at Sheffield United. He had man of the match. I think it might have been the Wolves' first game. You're on the page. You click it up. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But 14 bonus points in 4 games is not a joke.
Man of the match.
Yes, he had man of the match and passing tier against Wolves. Nothing against Chelsea. He had the assist against Sheffield United.
And man of the match.
And man of the match again. And then passing tier 1 and tackle tier 2 in the Bournemouth game.
Yeah, fantastic value at 6.2 million in this.
That feels more like, whereas realistically, with the other 4 players respectively, the 2 from Norwich and Burn and Gilbert from Brighton and Villa respectively, we're talking about 4 other players here who are going to be involved in a relegation dogfight. And I don't know, once they're in, they're going to stay in, I think. And therefore, I'm probably going to be quite rare in doing this. I think I'm likely to go without Burn or Gilbert. But I do understand completely from a power perspective why you would just go, fucking hell, this guy enables so much. Like I said, it's hard. If that enables you the Maddison to De Bruyne, for example, then I can't argue against you doing it. It's just a personal opinion that I think it's a problem waiting to happen longer term.
Moving up the price brackets, and who else catches your eye as someone to now consider?
Well, second player on my team sheet after Aubameyang, and I would say the only other person 100% to be in my squad right now is Ederson. 7.9, the most expensive fit goalkeeper at the moment.
Yeah.
Alisson slightly more expensive, but obviously still out and unconfirmed when he'll return.
Also the highest point scoring goalkeeper, right? From my understanding. Let's check that.
No, I think it's Vicente Gaeta at the moment.
By 1 point.
26 points.
They've kept 2 clean sheets, that's why.
What's worth remembering with the keepers here, in comparison to the defenders, is you get 7 points for a goalkeeper clean sheet, whereas defenders get 5.
Yeah.
Now, that kind of balances a little bit with City. So, I mean, I think the standout City choice defensively would be Otamendi at 8.8. I'm not considering them at the moment because I'm just happy to go with Ederson until I've got that clearer picture. And I've also got a couple of players in at the moment who are very similarly priced to Otamendi. So if I am right about that, I can make the move further down the line if I want to. The disparity between Ederson at 7.9, who's the most expensive fit goalkeeper, and Aaron Ramsdale at Bournemouth, who is the cheapest playing goalkeeper at the moment at 6.3, is 1.6 million. That's the difference.
Yeah, it's nothing.
It really doesn't feel worthwhile saving the money.
It's not worth it.
I think Gaeta's an interesting one at 6.4 because Palace, as what we would probably consider, they'll probably still finish bottom half, Palace. Although they are walking into a tougher run in the next 3 months before a very good December fixture, which we've highlighted on the FPL pods a number of times. They do keep a decent number of clean sheets, Palace.
Yep.
No doubt about it. So I think if you're going to go Gaeta 6.4 and that moves your money elsewhere, I think as long as you are having an Otamendi or a Stones or whatever you want to do with that, fine. The other one that people are mentioning from a goalkeeper perspective is Angus Gunn, who I believe is also 6.4, because that gives you the cover of the 2 Friday night games, Bournemouth at home, Leicester at home. That doesn't appeal to me at all. I have to say, in spite of the fact that Southampton have 2 game days where they're one of only 2 teams playing, there's not a single Southampton player that appeals to me. I would rather go without than force one of them in. And I think, actually, when I looked at Southampton's squad in a bit more detail, Gunn probably would be the right way to go if you were desperate to get one in. Like, literally nothing stood out. It doesn't help that Nathan Redmond's got an injury at the moment. 8.2 for Redmond feels too expensive. All these others, like Vestergaard's had good returns, 7.3. It's not going to last. You compare Vestergaard 7.3 with Sionku at 6.2.
Yeah, it's
Forget about it. We're not doing this. James Ward-Prowse at 7.8 when you can have the likes of Mason Mount at 7.3. No, thank you. Danny Ings is 9 million, mate. No, you're right. No, thanks. And Che Adams is a very good price at 7.6.
He hasn't scored a goal yet this year. So
and he's a player that I like from what I'd seen of him in the Championship, but you need to see some returns first. So Southampton just got a line through them. And therefore, those were probably the only 3 goalkeepers that would have come into consideration for me. But I just not overthink that. You know Ederson's going to play every week. It takes away that concern of what is Pep going to do. I've seen another report yesterday saying that he might try Zinchenko at left-sided centre-half. Do we need to play around with this worry? It's a future transfer waiting to happen with Laporte's injury because we don't know. The same applies with, I know Dan and Mark were talking on their pod, got strong opinions on Mendy potentially. I don't know if they've had a rethink on that since. I wouldn't go anywhere near Benjamin Mendy personally. I wouldn't. Walker's 10 million plus. Wouldn't go near. Cancelo, don't know enough about if he's going to take the place. So it'd be Stones at 9 or Otamendi at 8.8, who would appeal once you knew, in my opinion. Zinchenko 8.2, and if he keeps Mendy out, it's obviously great. But Ederson takes that whole problem away.
He's cheaper, and also the thing is, you want enough players from enough different clubs to make sure you can have that captaincy coverage. Whereas if you had all the players from the same team, that's not going to happen. In this game, you can pick as many players from any individual club as you want. You're going to want the likes of Sterling or De Bruyne or what have you. So you're going to have a couple of City attacking assets without a doubt. It means having 2 at the back or 3 at the back is not really an option. So I'm going to go in with 0 City defenders, just Ederson as the goalkeeper, which looks like what you're going to be looking at doing as well. And he's been the guy since the start of the season. You're talking about 8.8 for Otamendi or even 9 for Stones. Dean's cheaper than both of them, Luca Dean. 8.6, so I'd rather have him than have those 2.
Yeah, but
for the attacking returns potentially.
So the one to flip this on its head a little bit and say happy just to go Ederson. At the moment in my team, I only have 2 City players. It feels light. Norwich away, Watford at home. It feels light.
Sure. Tell me about defence. So we both started with. I don't know if you'd call it a big at the back strategy because I don't think Sky has these names. We both had VVD and Trent. Trent he only picked up BPS or tier bonus points in the last game, but he has had a couple of assists this season. That deflected OG didn't go down as an assist, I think, for him, did it? I'm not one of the assists that was in FPL didn't go down in this. I can't remember.
Yes, he did. He picked up tackles tier and assist in the Burnley game, and he obviously had an assist.
The assists are picked up
in the Norwich and Arsenal game. So all 3 assists he did. I
think Trent is likely to keep picking up assists and BPS and stuff. He's 9.9 million, perfectly well priced for a steady, reliable asset that week in week out you can stick on. And Van Dijk is 0.6 more expensive at 10.5, but again he's picking up tackle points and also he had the 1 goal at the start of the season as well. So I'm sticking with both of them for my team.
At the moment, I've just got Trent. 2 reasons for that. One of the things I've noticed, and this might level out because we can only look at a 4-week sample of data. But looking at the first 4 weeks, the number of passing tiers being hit by defensive players doesn't appear as large as it did throughout last season. Laporte hit it tier 2 25 times last season.
Wow.
And forgive me, I'm not aware if the threshold on that has changed, if it's been moved a little bit higher or lower this year. I'm not aware. And Van Dijk was hitting it, every other week, kind of at least as well. So far, I think he's hit it once, Van Dijk, if I'm not incorrect. And I think one of the reasons for that at the moment might be this idea and this theory that Liverpool have been trying to play with a higher line in games. Now, I think if you look at them last year, they will have always been sort of standoffish in the way they retain the ball at the back. It's only Alisson really that takes chances. And it just feels a little bit at the moment that he might not hit the tiering as much as he did last year. They've also got obviously a difficult run of fixtures coming up, Liverpool, which includes in this period obviously Chelsea away, Manchester United away, Spurs at home, and Manchester City at home coming up soon as well, just after once we get into November. So some difficult fixtures coming up. I think Liverpool are capable of keeping a clean sheet at any time. But I just feel like Alexander-Arnold will outscore him.
Yeah.
Because of the potential for additional attacking returns. I think we need to get over the idea of him being a rotation risk. Yes, there are games he's going to get left out, whereas Van Dijk probably never will. But I think he may well make up for it. I think Alexander-Arnold started the last 15 or 16 league games now. We need to get over
15
this.
15 it is, I think.
We need to get over this. It's not too much for a rotation risk. And we've said numerous times, Liverpool cannot take their eye off the ball in any league game at the moment if they really want to push City. I think Alexander-Arnold's more likely to get left out for Joe Gomez in a Champions League game.
Yep. You talked about going big up front with big strikers. Now, the big strikers in this game carry big price tags as well, whether you're talking Kane or Salah, who's a forward in this game, or Mane, who's also a forward, I think, in this game as well. And Aguero, they all carry very expensive price tags. So Salah's the most expensive at 12.2, Aguero 12.1, Kane at 12, Mane's 11.5. You've got Aubameyang at 11.7. The six that are top of your watch list are all forwards and all above 11.5 million. How many of those big six, let's call them, because there's always a top six, are you going to get in?
I haven't decided, but at the moment I have 3. At the moment I have Aubameyang, Aguero and Salah.
Okay, so that's really heavy. That's going to make you compromise at the back and then midfield,
of course it
unfortunately.
Is, yes.
So your budget ringers, who have you really dropped down to afford that then?
The cheapest player in my squad is Sionku.
Okay, fine. So you're going with 7 and 8 million pound kind of players as opposed to anything else. I've only got Sterling at the moment. I wouldn't mind one or two of the others, but I always like to spread my money a little bit more than maybe you would like to. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to afford or get in another one. And if I do, it's going to be at the back in defence where I'm going to have to compromise, which will be Virgil van Dijk.
With obviously me going down the route of Aubameyang, I obviously need the reverse of that, right? The guys that are going to hammer home on the Saturdays. I feel your personal choice would be the advice on this, but I feel you have to start with Aguero or Sterling because of these two fixtures coming up, both on Saturdays. Salah appeals as well because obviously they're the lunchtime this weekend. And he's the one that I feel like I might, when the time is right, move off for Vardy. But he could go mental this Saturday. It depends. Newcastle were obviously a side, as we saw from the game week 3 game at Spurs, who they'll sit in, they'll frustrate. They're not bad defensively. They'll have picked up all the good traits that they picked up from Rafa Benitez last season and still have them.
Yeah, you don't change overnight.
In the game at Spurs, they went back to a shape that is more familiar to how they played under Benitez last year. They could go to Liverpool and could very well frustrate. Unfortunately, they do normally go to Liverpool and get absolutely smashed. They got beat 4-0 there last year under Benitez, and it could have been 7 or 8 quite easily around Christmas time. I think it was 3-0 the year before. I think Mane got a couple that time.
If Liverpool score early, I think that's the key to them railroading.
Yeah, I mean, no rotation. It would be handy to know the team, but there's no threat of Salah or Mane being left out this weekend. What is, of course, the threat is that they could get hooked after an hour if they're a couple up, but you hope by that point they've already done the damage for you. The same applies with the City guys in terms of getting hooked early if the game's done. We know that if City are quite comfortable, Aguero or Sterling could quite easily get hooked at 60 minutes. No problem at all. Doesn't matter if they get hooked at 59 minutes in this game, which is nice.
No, it's just if you're starting, right? So anyone that had Otamendi before he hobbled off is probably grateful because you still picked up the points for him, right?
Otamendi?
Laporte. Yeah, Laporte. Yeah. Because he was in the starting 11.
I haven't decided definitively on that front three for sure. I feel like I've got to go one of Aguero or Sterling. If I don't add Salah to that, it means I'm not having any attack in Liverpool. It just doesn't feel right yet. And I feel like if I go with Salah Saturday, I'll captain Salah Saturday rather than one of the City boys. I think I'd go down that route because whichever one, Aguero or Sterling, I go for one place. But I do think they will. I see no reason. I think both of them in the same boat. I think there's too much worry about rotation with Liverpool and City at the moment. I think the league, certainly in the first half of the season, has to be the priority till they both have a clearer indication of where they stand. And I would go Aguero over Sterling for 2 reasons. One, higher ceiling in games like this.
Yeah.
Would not shock if Aguero got 4 at the weekend. Although Raheem Sterling is obviously absolutely firing at the moment as well. Obviously for England on Tuesday night, another goal and 3 assists against Kosovo. I like the idea that Sterling is slightly cheaper than Aguero, and if we need to move that, we can move that rather than again being that same problem the other way. It's the same thing with Salah Mane.
Yeah.
If it needs moving, come down. I feel like I'd rather be in that position than rather, I can save $1 million here if I do them two. Those two are the guys that have the bigger power for me. Sterling will have a run this season where he'll go 4 odd games without returning.
Sure.
If Sergio Aguero's fit, that won't happen.
You don't think so?
No. Aguero will always get goals. If Aguero played 38 games, it would piss top goal scorer.
Yeah.
He'd get 30, 35. If Aguero played 38 games, he'd score more goals this season than anybody else has in a Premier League season. He won't, though. We know he's susceptible to getting injuries and that.
Yeah.
But I think while the going's good, I would go with Aguero. But I might come off one of them, and one of the ideas I would look at is Callum Wilson, who, if you're not going with Aubameyang, would obviously give you a captaincy cover on Sunday.
Yeah.
He'd give you the captaincy Friday night at Southampton, hold that through for their fixture the following Saturday, and then move to Jamie Vardy on the Sunday morning before they play Newcastle. So you get the three of Wilson in okay fixtures, including possibly two captaincy, definitely at least one, and then move to Vardy on the Sunday with that. I think I said it was 0. You've got it in front of you. So 0.8 difference between the two of them.
Between 10.7 and 9.9.
You can hold that back. I have currently got, in the team I've picked, I have got 0.8 in the bank as well. That's the sort of money I'd like to... I'm liable to make a bad decision, right? Somewhere. So I want to be in a position where I can try and fix that.
Your watch list that you put together and we've spoken about has only one Spurs player in it. Tell me more.
Well, his name's Harry Kane.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to tell me anything about why Harry Kane's in the list. I can understand that. No one else from Spurs appeals. Heung-min Son is 10.5 and classified as a striker in this game. Too expensive?
No, not yet for Sonny. Time might appeal again, but at 10.5, no. And you're comparing it and going, it's what, 1.1 more for a Sterling or one more for a Mane.
Lucas Moura is 9.6.
Doesn't feel quite right. As a midfielder as well, Lucas Moura, importantly. Harry Winks, notable, actually, 7.7. Because he will, in those games where we play teams with a low block like Villa and Newcastle, he will smash out the passing tiers. But never get any attacking returns. So it feels like a waste. Again, you're comparing to sort of Mounts, McGinns, who are cheaper. It just doesn't feel right. Kane has a 3-week period. I mean, the fixtures are okay now. Obviously, I don't think you'd captain him this week to Palace if you go that route, and that's one of the reasons to go without, I think.
More than likely because you're going to have a City or
Liverpool
player.
You wouldn't captain him when they play at Leicester the week after. Then the following 3 really appeal, and it might be a move I'd consider where Brighton away looks a great fixture on that Saturday lunchtime. And then it's Southampton at home, then Brighton away, then Watford at home. If we just compare and look at Spurs for the second. So on that Saturday when Spurs play Southampton, which is when I think a lot are thinking, we'll go then. Liverpool are at Sheffield United. City are at Everton. Do I need to force the move to Captain Kane? In your opinion, Suj?
Not if you've got Salah.
The following week when we're at Brighton is the lunch.
I think Salah's captainable. You agree?
Well, Liverpool, Sheffield United, what are you going to be frightened about? I mean, Sheffield United defensively have been good so far, but I think if you're in a position where you're fucking shitting yourself about that, absolutely you could pick Kane at home to Southampton rather than Salah away to Sheffield United or Mane. Yeah, of course you absolutely could. But do I need to force that move? That's what I'm saying. No. The week after, and interesting, you mentioned Liverpool. Probably the 2 standout fixtures. Spurs away to Brighton, Liverpool at home to Leicester, which is difficult. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But it's still Liverpool at Anfield.
It's Anfield. That's what I was going to say. The key thing in that, and what you're saying to me is Anfield.
The following Saturday, we play Watford at home. Man City are at Palace.
Yeah. Any City player against Palace, is it you're going to take it?
Well, I don't know. Palace are decent defence, isn't it? I think that probably is the one, which is Sky's Game Week 11, where I'd go, I'd definitely back Harry.
But by then, if you haven't used any of your transfers, you've got enough.
I think if you're staying, the answer to probably the conundrum here with Kane probably is, if you're going with the Liverpool coverage, probably go without. If for some reason you're not, you may want to go for Harry Kane. And that's where you start comparing teams on certain particular game days.
Yes.
Because the 2 that really stand out there, we're having an argument about Spurs and Liverpool. So Salah and Kane are relative to each other. And that's actually been the case in FPL from the start. It's one of the reasons why I didn't go with Salah, was saying if you compare, and those were on given game weeks, that Spurs and Liverpool, when you'd want to captain them both, you'd both want to captain the other. It was go one or the other, go with your belief.
Yeah.
And that's why I went with Harry for that. Obviously, in that, Harry Kane's what's Salah's FPL price? Is it 12.5?
12.5 and Harry Kane's only 11. So
Right,
there's
so
a massive
1.5
difference.
saving as
Yeah,
well, which
massive difference.
a lot of people go, you're mad, pay for Salah. I get that.
Yeah, based on his current returns,
but on this,
they're right. But yeah,
I don't know. Can you pick Kane over a Salah?
well, because Salah's a forward, no, I don't think you can necessarily pick one over the other. I think Salah for me in this game is the one.
So anyway, Kane, whether you go with Kane,
0.2 difference.
he's probably relative to what you're doing with Liverpool assets.
Who else stands out for you that you would consider? Chelsea have a couple of assets that are particularly well priced. Mason Mount is 7.3 million. He's going to be in my overhaul team. Tammy Abraham's the other one at 8.3 as a striker.
Really interesting, that Tammy Abraham.
Good price, you know.
Yeah.
Bad fixtures in the next two, but after that, a good price.
There's three that stand out. The other one I'd throw in is Emerson at 7.9, who, although we've kind of laughed about it on the FPL show, saying like you'll have to score, they'll never keep a clean sheet.
It's not a bad price.
He is hitting some decent tier numbers as well, because he's having. I think Emerson, if I'm right, he's hit a passing tier, a tackle tier, and a shooting tier so far this season. I'm sure he has, Emerson. And 7.9 is quite attractive.
Yeah, I'll be pulling him up in just a second.
I think we can look at it now and we can say, yeah, he's got the shirt over Alonso.
For
Alonso's
sure.
9.1 in this. And actually, if Emerson was going to be out for a while, we don't know at this stage the extent of Emerson's injury. But actually, Alonso at 9.1 would appeal.
Yep.
Because of the potential attacking returns, the amount of shots he has, etc. So those are the three. Abraham's really interesting. The one I linked to Abraham was actually Aller.
Yeah.
Chelsea have got two difficult fixtures now with Wolves away, Liverpool at home, where I wouldn't be... Obviously, Abraham can return. Anyone can return in any game. I wouldn't be keen on diving him for that. I feel like I'd be holding that back for later fixtures when I could be hitting someone else first.
Yeah, like Aller with Villa away.
And it gives you the captaincy for that. So those two, and in that area, feel kind of linked a little bit, Aller and Tammy Abraham. So I think that's you could do Aller for the first two. It's United. Yeah. It's United at home afterwards, isn't it?
Afterwards, United at home, and then we have Burnley and then Palace.
Yeah. So I think you can make that move. Chelsea have got 6 great fixtures in a row. And obviously a name that I'd pull out who you won't consider now, but it's going to come into the thoughts of FPL managers, gone down to 5.9, and in Sky obviously is 7.8. Callum Hudson-Odoi is nearing fitness.
Yeah.
And
5.9 in this in FPL.
I feel like further down the line, Callum Hudson-Odoi is going to be quite important here. The one problem with Chelsea a little bit is going back to the fixtures. Although they've got an amazing run coming up, there's none that stand out where I'd go, Chelsea players are the best options on these game days. I feel like I want some coverage there because it's a good longer term run. And I'm Mason Mount as well.
Yeah, they're enablers. I hate the word enablers, but you need some players in your side like Soyuncu. You're never going to captain Soyuncu unless they're the only team playing that day. But you need him in your team to allow you to have De Bruyne and Sterling's and all the rest of these guys.
The problem with maybe Abraham, more than Mount's not a player you're going to captain unless they've got a single game day.
Yeah, agreed.
Abraham, I think you can get sucked into the rotation. Not the rotation, sucked into the captaincy temptation and the fixture. But actually, when you look more in detail at the fixtures for Chelsea, so when they play Brighton at home, that's the same day Spurs at home, Southampton, Liverpool at Sheffield United. No thanks. Game week after doesn't particularly appeal. When they play Newcastle at home, Spurs at home to Watford, City are at Palace. When they're at Burnley, same day, City are at home to Villa. So there's not a day there where it appeals to go, I'll put my hat on you. So it feels like the sensible idea to me is to go with Mount. It gives you a nice little bit of coverage in there. It's a really cheap price. It's an easy one to get away to or get away from. I've got 3 players in there all around Mason Mount's price at the moment because I think they're all quite nicely priced. I'm not saying it will stay that way.
Yeah, sure.
But there are easy moves to get away from Mason Mount as well, I think. Interesting, just on the side note, that Barkley's been favoured in the 2 England games. I don't expect that to be the case for Chelsea. Obviously, Mount has played in more of a sort of inside left position since Pedro's injury. But I think we think longer term, obviously Hudson-Odoi on the left, Pulisic on the right, and I think Mount will get the favouritism in the 10 role.
You have picked Harry Wilson, I'm guessing.
What makes you say that?
Because you said you pick players that are in the price bracket of Mason Mount.
I do have Harry Wilson at the moment.
He's a real interesting asset at the moment.
He's also a real risk, I think.
Well, Liverpool apparently have written into his loan agreement that he's going to supposedly, he has to get a certain amount of minutes. If you notice, he's been playing 55 and 60 minutes in most games. So I don't think it's a risk.
I don't believe that happens, not between 2 Premier League clubs.
I think it does. I've heard from a number of sources that actually, Liverpool put into their loan agreements.
Okay.
If they're not getting players, if they're not getting minutes, then may as well leave them.
Well, if he's written into his contract, I feel better now.
Yeah, I mean, shots, 2 goals already. He's got some bonus points already. Very low ownership. So if differentials really matter, he's a bit of a differential. I think at 7.3 million, he's a real good shout. So I don't know if any of my praise there helps you, but I think, Harry Wilson is a good option. He's not one that I'm going to be going with because I've got enough money not to, but...
Yeah, it gives me that Friday night captaincy cover against Southampton. My concern, and this is honest truth, I don't know if I've got him in because of that, and it's playing on the back of my mind. He's certainly one for shots. He'll pick up shot tiers, which is nice. He's arguably, on what we've seen at Derby last season, and obviously the free kick against Man City, might be the best striker with a free kick in the league. You could make that argument.
Yeah.
At 7.3 appeals, I think it's probably the one in my team I'm least sure of at the moment. I like it because it gives me the captaincy cover. The other person I've got in, you can probably guess now, at similar value, who I like more actually.
I do know your watch list, so McGinn?
It is, yeah.
McGinn.
And it gives me the captaincy cover on the Monday night against you.
Charlotte, yeah.
Those are my 3 at the moment, is Mount, McGinn and Harry Wilson. And now I think they're all 7.4 or 7.3 each respectively. Yeah, 7.3 Wilson and Mount, McGinn 7.4. The leaving the little bit of the money in the bank does allow me to get away from it as well. It does quite comfortably allow me to get to James Maddison or Daniel James, who are 2 players I'd really strongly consider as well. I just like the idea. First couple of weeks, they're attacking midfielders. I think McGinn has so many efforts on goal as well. They're both reasonable captain cover for those 2 individual games. But I do feel as well it's not essential to have the captaincy cover for those games.
No, but
it also,
so many transfers at so far,
at the same time, just to
hurt.
flip that on its head, I think there'll be, and Dan and Mark could probably answer this better than we can immediately. Longer term, there'll be games where I think you'll just want to let go. But it does feel like having those fixtures so early in the season, like have some coverage.
Yeah,
like get them in. If it's not working, fuck them off. And if they're doing well, great. Let's crack on for a little while.
Yeah,
that's my feeling on it. I feel like the majority of us are going to end up with a Villa or a West Ham player because you feel like it's the first game week. There's no real excuse not to put someone in there. From that perspective, Allaire appeals as the most obvious captaincy option. That's kind of why you think about that Abraham move.
And not just that, but there's a number of good fixtures in and amongst that. Whether or not you're captaining him, the fixtures that follow Manchester United at home and even the home fixture against United are decent fixtures that you do want to. If you're bringing Allaire into your overhaul team, and you're going to captain him on Monday night, I don't think you're then going to be moving away from him for at least 4 or 5 weeks, barring any injury.
The only problem with me going that sort of midfield that I've got at the moment is obviously no Kevin De Bruyne. There isn't a midfielder on my watch list priced higher than James Maddison at 8.3. I'm not interested. I completely understand Pepe. Completely get that. It's not for me because I'm so sure and wanting to go Aubameyang.
Yeah.
It might be that if Pepe starts firing, we'll start juggling that. And we look at going Aubameyang to an Abraham, for example, and then moving one of those 7.3 guys to Pepe. These are the sort of moves that further down the line, if I've realised I've made a mistake. And obviously he's a lot cheaper, Pepe, so it saves you
some money.
Yeah, and then suddenly you can build in like a Kevin De Bruyne, for example. Not rights and wrongs, but the high price midfielders other than De Bruyne don't particularly appeal to me, and that's why I'm kind of happy to move the money around the rest of the squad at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I've been tinkering and looking at my squad whilst we've been talking, and I've ended up with a front six that I'm particularly happy with. In
You've
De
got
Bruyne,
6 up front. We'd all like 6 up front.
Midfield and strikers. Forward.
We changed this 5-3-2 because in this game we'd like to play 2-3-5.
3-3, 4-3-3 at the moment. But De Bruyne, Mount, Pepe, Salah, Sterling, Allaire.
I love that you've picked your team based on this.
I think 3 of those I already had before, so I'm actually.
I advise all
really
the listeners to come to their own conclusion.
Of course, but yeah, it feels like overhaul. I'm only changing 4 or 5 players out of my 11. I'm not actually changing that many, but it still gives me Edison in goal, Alexander-Arnold and Dean in defence, Soyuncu in defence, and then just one ringer, if we want to call it a ringer. I may go with Gilbert as a ringer at 4.5 and 4.6.
Why is Matt Lowton sitting in your team?
At the moment, because if I go with Gilbert, then I've got 2.5 million in the bank.
Finish your team. We'll come back onto Burnley, actually. We'll talk about
Yeah, I mean, Burnley, the reason Matt Lowton is there is because at 7.1 million of the teams that have good fixtures in the next 4, Burnley have the best fixtures, and that's literally the only reason. Other than that, I'd go with Gilbert and leave 2.6 million in the bank. It's too much, but it allows me to go from Allaire to Vardy if and when the time's right. It allows me to go from Mount to somebody bigger if and when the time's right. But I've got Salah and Sterling up front already, so I'm fairly comfortable with that. It's just you're not going in with a ringer in the likes of Gilbert or Burns or Campbell, whereas I am.
I'm not saying that I won't. At the moment, I have it set up without.
Yeah.
Just on Burnley, as we highlighted on the podcast we did on Monday with a bit of a... we only looked up to game week 8 on the fixture analysis for FPL. We think Burnley have got the best run of fixtures over the next 4 games. And it does make you feel like, should I be considering them? So go back to goalkeepers a bit. I guess you could consider Nick Pope at 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as much as I would definitely want to go with Edison, going with Nick Pope would appeal to me a lot more than going for Matt Lowton.
Yeah.
A lot more. So, I'd rather do that. And then if you're going to stick in Otamendi or Stones or whatever, I'd rather do that than have Lowton in this.
Yeah, so what you're saying is Burnley keeper, City defender is better than City keeper, Burnley defender.
Yes.
Exactly. I agree with you on that.
That's what I would say. Of those defensively, Lowton, because he's the cheapest nailed, if that's such a thing, would probably be the one at 6.6. Price of the midfielders doesn't appeal, although Goodmanson at 7.6 and McNeil at 7.3 might be 2 in and around that priced area of the 7 million players again.
Move around a little bit.
It might stand out further down the line. Ashley Barnes is 8.9, Chris Wood 8.5. Ashley Barnes at 8.9 doesn't appeal at all. And the reason for that, unfortunately, is his price. You're never going to captain him.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Timu Pukki at 7.8.
Yeah. It's funny, Pookie's not even close to getting into my consideration at the moment because of how many other options there are.
He's not mine either, but I think the other one that I'd highlight as a really cheap price who wouldn't be a consideration for me, but I understand he will be, and again, because the Monday night fixture, Wesley is 7.2. It's really dirt cheap for a forward playing in this game. I would just take the opinion that I don't want to fuck around with a guy that I don't believe will get enough attacking returns.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Find
the money
price.
to go
if you're
up
going to
to
enable,
I
feel like don't do it there. Your Pookies, your Abrahams at sort of cheaper prices than Ashley Barnes will get you returns. I'm not sure if Wesley will, and I think you would be putting him in because you want to captain him Monday night. And you then may struggle to get away from it.
Yeah.
Basically, is only him and Jordan Ayew is 7.3. He's the only one. Che Adams at 7.6. You're fighting shit here to get away from Wesley if you haven't got the money in the bank.
Mean, nothing there appeals whatsoever.
No,
there we go.
And I think they're at Arsenal the week after they play you, so you don't want to be looking at that the week after, I don't think.
No, for sure. Anything else that you want to point out that stands out in terms of fixtures? We haven't mentioned quite a lot of clubs, the likes of Brighton we haven't looked at really, Newcastle we haven't looked at really.
Well, you only know 9 of my team at the moment. Luca Dean is in mine as well. Yep. And the decision on that is based at nice price at 8.6. And a good run of fixtures for Everton. There isn't anything that stands out from a captaincy point of view. I'm not whole big into picking my defenders based on, I might captain him in 7 weeks' time on a Monday night. I think Dean...
Have you learnt your lesson from captaining Van Dijk that week?
Hey, I won't do that. Dean appeals. The only other player... Richarlison and Sigurdsson you need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Siggy's 9.9 million is not a bad price.
Richarlison 10.2. I think it's a bit expensive, personally. But they'll get consistent returns. And Richarlison's picking up some interesting bonus tiers. He's hit tackle tiers a couple of times.
Yeah.
And you know he likes a shot as well. Siggy will be creative. He won't hit the passing tiers. He's playing too far forward. But he'll hit shot tiers as well. The alternative to Dean, if you're trying to save a bit of money... There is a drop down between the other 3. Coleman at 8, I would avoid. Mina at 7.8, I would avoid. Just looks like he wants to have a fight every fucking week.
He does have a fight. He doesn't even look like it. He goes.
Michael Keane at 7.9, who is not an England international in my opinion.
I didn't even want to raise it, but you've alluded to it.
I don't know if Sean at Spirit Blues plays this, but he'd be fucking upset if he does. But he might appeal for this at 7.9. If you're struggling and you need something at that value, I think Michael Keane at 7.9, comparing around sort of like people like Diop at 7.8, that kind of value. If you need something at that kind of price range, I think is okay. He's probably at that price, in and around sort of 7.5 to 8 would be the standout defensive one. But yeah, go Dean. And I also have another player in is exactly the same price as Luke Dean, who I think a lot of people may avoid because of the dreaded eye at the moment. And I might take a chance on it anyway if he's only out for a week or so, is Aaron Wan-Bissaka.
Because of his passing tiers and tackle bonus points and what have you.
Aaron Wan-Bissaka has so far this season, he picked up tier 2 tackles against Chelsea. He picked up tier 2 tackles against Wolves. He picked up tier 2 tackles against Southampton. He had an unbelievable 0 at home to Crystal Palace. 2
goals conceded and a yellow card.
And no tackle tiers because they had so much of the ball, presumably. I think he did he have a passing tier against Wolves as well?
Wolves picked up passing tier as well and a yellow card as well. So he has picked up a couple of yellow cards.
That Wolves fixture, he's got no clean sheet and a yellow card and he still picked up 7 points.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take that baseline kind of 5.5 points per game. Yes, please, at that valuation. We'll have that tick over very, very nicely. I believe I might be incorrect. Checks on Will's Fantasy Football Hub, but I believe that Aaron Wan-Bissaka at the moment has, excluding Man of the Match awards, the most bonus points so far this season. Speaking really, really slowly so I can go and check
it. It wouldn't surprise. Yes. I mean, he's picked up a ton of bonus points there.
He does. Well, Aaron Wan-Bissaka has, excluding Man of the Match bonus points, the most bonus points. The only player with more than 10 at the moment. Just out of interest, those with 10: Emerson, Ricardo Pereira at Leicester, Richarlison at Everton, who I said is picking up some funny ones.
Yes.
Tier 1 bonus for tackles twice. And Tom Tribal at Norwich, who was priced in between Leitner and Cantwell, but has picked up an injury. And he would have been one to have an eye on as well, unfortunately.
There we go. We've been through a ton of players there, James.
Nice going, eh?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is I suppose it's not too dissimilar to FPL in that at the start of the FPL season there was maybe a pool of 40 to 50 players that you're going to potentially choose from. Here I feel like it's much smaller.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
just a couple of things to...
You're still looking for reliability here, aren't you?
Yeah, a little bit. Just a couple of names to throw out who I think are quite nicely priced, who we've not mentioned. Fabinho at Liverpool, 8.5 million. I think he'll pick up a number of serious passing tiers across this season. Daniel James, we've hardly spoke about. 3 goals so far this season. It's an absolute lock to stay in the team at the moment. I have concerns about him going back on the right when Martial's fit and not returning the same way that he has from his last 2 goals on the left.
Yeah.
If you're struggling budget-wise, you can do a lot worse than Scott McTominay at 6.8. I think he's really developing it as a footballer. And I think in games like that against Palace, he will pick up some passing tiers. He got the assist at Southampton. I think he's a lock in that team now. And at that price, he's cheap enough that he might be your enabler rather than a Suyuncu, for example. I think you can consider that. We spoke about Haller a bit. I think Lanzini is the standout attacking midfielder, one at 7.9 as an alternative option for others in that captaincy for the Monday night game.
I don't disagree with you because of the pricing of the midfielders. Anderson is tons more expensive at 9.6, so I think that pushes him out of consideration. You take Pepe at 9.8 over Anderson at 9.6, and there's a bunch of others, Madison's and all the rest that you've mentioned. I'm blowing Yarmolenko's horn quite a bit at the moment, in the sense that I think he's an interesting consideration, but he's only 0.1 cheaper than Lanzini. 7.8, Lanzini 7.9.
Yeah, Lanzini on good West Ham days as well might stand out as like man of match contender and stuff as well.
Yeah.
The concern with Lanzini is just doesn't get enough attacking returns, but that might be different now. Playing in a settled system with the 2 guys out wide and a proper focal point up front now. You know, Haller looks a good player. We have to mention Diogo Jota at Wolves, priced at 8.3 million. A scourge for a lot of people in both games at the start of this season.
He's the first person off my team sheet in Sky FF.
I personally
gone, mate. Him and Tielemans are out.
Don't think you can go near it. One name to shout out at Palace, away from the obvious of Gate at 6.4 and Van Aanholt at 7.9. Joel Ward at 6.5 is worth watching.
Cheap.
Comparable price-wise with like Suyuncu, and we know that the Palace are one of the better sides defensively. So that's okay. The Bournemouth lads, we've mentioned Ryan Fraser 8.7 is a little bit too much at the moment. And I also think there's a possibility when trying to work sort of Harry Wilson and Brooks longer term when he's fit into the side that he might actually end up in a wing-back position, Fraser. Not as yet, but could do. Pascal Gross, 7.5 at Brighton.
Cheap price, decent price.
Well, he's another one that falls into that price area of 7 to 8 million midfielders that I think are all right. Watford were one of only 2 teams I didn't highlight anybody of interest, unfortunately. There's just nothing there. The only one, Ismail Sarr, is 6.5 million, is cheap.
He is, considering his real life price.
They spent 30 million plus on the guy. So further down the line, that might be one to really keep an eye on. We've mentioned the guys at Norwich, Villa, Newcastle, nothing to see. There are a couple that are of interest at Sheffield United. Like I think you can go Henderson. I think you could go Baldock at 6.3. And the forwards are all quite cheap. They're in and around that Wesley area. So it could be an escape. The problem is Sheffield United have an absolute clusterfuck of a fixture run coming up, so you would not go near them.
Yeah, they're not even a consideration for me at the moment. There's some of the big clubs have affordable budget options like Mounts at 7.3 and Suyuncu at 6.2 and even West Ham and what have you that we've mentioned, that you're not going further down the table to look at these clubs, which you do need to do in FPL. I suppose maybe because you've got a bench that you need to fill, so that's the best place to go and fill your bench from sometimes.
Well, when I was listening to Sky podcasts with Mark and Dan last week, the guys were quite dismissive of these lower ranked clubs and just forget about them. Like, don't be clever about it. Like Ismail Sarr at 6.5, he starts exploding. You go, well, that's super cheap. But is it really when you can still have like Mason Mount? It's only 0.8 more, even still. So
the pricing is really interesting to get your head around.
I think
Sky.
them midfielders in and around that value are really interesting, and there might be jumps to be made between them. Talking of jumps, I just wanted to highlight an example, and now there are not many of these where I've heard the term used 3 for 1.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard used a little bit on Twitter, where essentially you're looking over 3 game weeks where, say, for example, you've got a player on a Saturday in the first game week, a Sunday in the third, and a shit fixture in the second week. You can manoeuvre 5 good fixtures out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example here, which doesn't really work. And actually, because of the Europa League, there's less of this. I think coming into sort of December, January, February, and the break of fixtures and stuff like that, when you have like your blanks and your doubles and stuff, you'll see a lot more of this. It's another reason why I really want to hold as many transfers back as possible for the second half of the season. So if you take October the 5th, Liverpool play at home to Leicester. You could move from Salah to Aguero, for example. The next day, City have Wolves at home. The following, it's international break, but then the following Saturday, City play at Palace, while Liverpool play at United the next day.
Right.
Now, obviously, it's the only fixture that day, that United-Liverpool, so you probably will want a captaincy option, but you'd be quite happy to go with a Van Dijk or an Alexander. If you're sitting there, I'm just saying, personally.
Yeah.
But then in the third week, City play at home to Villa on the Saturday, while Liverpool play Spurs at home on the Sunday.
Yeah.
So try and have a look, and I have had a look. There are no real obvious ones where you can make this sort of move where you're getting the real power out of these fixtures. There are moves where you can time things right, like if you're not going Jamie Vardy from the start, you buy him on that Sunday when they play Newcastle. Mm-hmm. Once you know that team at 3:00 or 3:30, whenever it is, that's when you go and buy him. But there are there aren't too many of these obvious 3 for 1s to pick out. There will be further down the line. Absolutely keep an eye on it, and we will, as the season progresses, we will be looking for these, because those are the sort of power transfers to get off that, and then captain, say, Aguero or Sterling in those 3, where you're potentially missing out on nothing with Liverpool, is a real difference maker.
Yes, for sure. One of the things we've not spoken about in the FPL podcast, and maybe now's not the time to raise it, James, but in this as well, is this February mid-season break that we've got coming up. We're five matches.
Fucking hell, people saying to me, how long should you plan for this?
Well, the 5 matches in one, because conceivably if they get split over 2 days or even 3 days each game week, like a Friday, Saturday and a Sunday, you're going to have players that you might be putting into your team that are not going to play for like a week and a half or 2 weeks. That is a bit of a risk. I mean, is that in your mind from FPL point of view, free hit territory? Just pick the first 5 matches.
It absolutely wouldn't be in my thinking now. The fact that we've got a split game week in February. No,
yeah, I don't know if for
all.
Sky it is split because they just don't care and they'll just have a blank game week.
It'll be 2 different game weeks.
2 different game weeks. Yeah,
because the game week runs from Friday to Thursday.
Yeah,
so technically it'll be 2 different game weeks. I think more the point is, I'm pretty sure, I don't know the dates, but I'll double check this for when we next record. I think it's just after the second overhaul.
Right.
And there's every chance that these 10 games might all end up on the telly. They might get spread. They're doing it at a time when there's no European fixtures and stuff.
Sure.
So Sky could take the liberties and go, we'll go Friday, Saturday to Sunday, Monday, if they wanted
Twice.
to. I mean, with a lack of fixtures, I'd prefer more to be on the Saturday than not, but that's just because I'm a fucking traditionalist personally. It's something to think about further down the line. And that's just, it's another point for me for holding transfers back.
For sure. That's what I'm thinking about at the moment as well.
Why did Paul, Sky Player and FPL, our friend from Wales, why did he say to me, try this game, James?
Planning.
It was on the back of all the chip strategy stuff we did for FPL last year.
Yeah.
And I think that in the second half of the season, I'll be able to manoeuvre it better than most. So while I'm miles away at the moment, thinking about it with a little bit more confidence, let's rock. I'm not winning 50 grand. That's next year. But I'm feeling, I suppose, with a little break as well and being able to change the team to a team that I like, I am feeling a lot more confident about it now.
For sure. And some of these gems are coming up now in terms of price and value and what have you that we may not have known about at the start of the season.
In terms of a manoeuvring fixture, the only one you need to worry about between now and the December fixtures, obviously Liverpool, sort of the Christmas fixtures, is obviously Liverpool will have that blank in December for the Club World Cup. But it's miles away. I fucking forget about it.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of one where you're going to want to maneuver around that, and you're going to have that 3-for-1 scenario where the game week before Liverpool go to the Club World Cup, they play Bournemouth at home, which you'd look at as a fixture and go, yep, captaincy. You can bet your life that as it's before they go into this tournament, the game won't be any later than the Saturday.
Yeah, agreed.
You move into the captain for the Sunday. They're not playing the following week.
And back you go again.
Absolutely.
Correct. Guys, that's our Sky Overhaul mega pod, which is our main podcast for this week. According to the Sky website, you now have 2 days, 17 hours and 4 minutes until
Which, by the time you listen to this,
will be
you've
less,
got less.
so-
All you need to know is your deadline is 12:30 p.m.
Saturday.
Yes, it's true. Don't confirm your team till you've seen
14th,
you've seen the Liverpool team. We can't imagine there'll be any rotation, and we know you're not considering Newcastle assets because we know you're not that silly. But do wait till you've seen the team.
Yes.
Always, I've said this religiously, and I know it'd be more difficult for others. I ain't making a transfer any time other than 1 hour before deadline every day.
Yes, and it's very sound and sage advice. We're back at you tomorrow with the clash of the correspondents. We had Stephen Toomey at 6 goal on from Watford, and Adam Pritchard from at 35who on Twitter from representing Arsenal. So that's a great little podcast. Looking forward to that fixture on Sunday. And then the final plan on Friday. We may have finalised Sky FF, but more than likely not. But the rest of the FPL stuff
Bound to change
will
it.
be
You
back.
get twitchy fingers. You think, oh, should I do that? And you know, I've only got 2 Liverpool players. I ain't got 2 Man City players.
Yes.
Have I got a good spread? Do I need more? Do I want Daniel James after all? You know, all these things are going through my head.
Tinker, Sailor, Soldier, Spy. I'm sure there's an FPL
Should I
version of
just
that.
go with it for Vardy because the fixtures don't matter and it allows me a little movement of something else?
Take a chill pill. Relax.
I am actually very chilled about it. One of the things I'd say, in all honesty, I did say on the previous Sky pods we'd done that when we got into the international break, I'd focus on FPL for a couple of days and then I'd really focus on this. This has been the majority of my thoughts the last few days. I do think about other things like my wife and my child occasionally and watching England, etc. But in terms of fantasy, Sky has taken up all of my thinking for the last few days, and that's been quite nice.
Yeah, I suppose where we've not thought massively about Sky because we don't want to use transfers up too early, we've both made a decision quite early that we want to try and maybe roll the transfer for game week 5 in FPL. So you're not really doing anything. Set and forget your team, bust team, whichever it is. And so you can kind of move your focus
also feel
across.
like we are the only 2 people in the FPL community possibly not making a transfer this game week.
I think
Everyone else seems to be on hits or wild cards.
Hits or wild cards is what it's about.
loads.
Wild card was the one that I was going to say. I feel like so many people are on wild card, but we're not yet. And let's pray to every god that's out there that it's to our advantage.
Cool. Thanks for listening, guys. Please
Yes.
give feedback because, as we've said, and we'll stress it again, we are not experts at these games. I'd strongly recommend listening to, watching the YouTube video that Will, Dan, and Mark have released today. I will probably tag it into the tweet underneath the podcast for
Yes.
this. So you've got if you're unfamiliar with them, you can link to it straight from us. Follow their advice more than ours. But as ever, make your own decisions and do let us know what the glaring fucking errors were in this podcast because we always make some. And
Exactly.
We are still trying and still learning.
Yes, fantastic. Do like the show, share it on any social platforms and all the rest of it. Subscribe, leave comments and any other stuff like that that helps us, really.
Nice.
Ciao for now.
Cue music, man, child.
Messi, encara 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 Messi.